Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Division I meeting. We're glad you're here. Got another fabulous crowd here today. I'm glad you guys are all here. We're going to have another great meeting. First off, I want to welcome John and Susan Francis. Can you guys wave back there so they know who you are? John has brought his collection that's been mightily picked over by now. But the prices are very, very reasonable and economic. So please go ahead and pick up some things there. Also, we've got a couple of different announcements that I want to make here in a second. But first and foremost, I'd like to extend our appreciation to the Texas Western Club for letting us meet here this month and every month. And if David would like to say a couple of words, David.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. Well, again, thank you for coming out to our club today to be a part of the Division I meeting. Always remember, after the Division I meetings, the rest of the day is open run. So if you happen to have brought locomotives, or if you remember for next time, it's open run for anybody, club members and non-members. So please remember that. Also on the table are stacks of magazines. Look through those before you go. If you see anything you'd like to walk home with, they're free. Please take them. Again, welcome. Anybody here for the first time to our club? Welcome. Glad you're here. Glad you're here. Oh, and by the way, we do have memberships available in case anybody wants.
Memberships are open. It's not a closed society.
No, memberships are
All right,
available.
just double checking. How many of you is the first time coming to a Division I meeting today? Yeah, Cal, sit back there. If you would, could you stand up for just a second? I want to recognize you guys. Yes, you too, Christina. All right. So, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you when you joined the NMRA and stuff?
My name is I joined at the Plano show. I was down in Corpus Christi. I was a member down there.
In no man's land down there.
Their local club. And but my son and I, we built tracks. I haven't built one up here just because our house we bought wasn't quite big enough to do what I want to do. My track right now is about that long, but I've been doing this since I was a little kid. My dad and I put trains together, and I wish I bought the shirt at the show that a couple months ago. It says I still play the train. Those available.
Yeah, you can get those readily available. What scale do you model in?
In an HO.
In an HO, okay. Brian, you've got a cousin there, so.
Oh, yeah, I hear.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next, Christina Nason. Christina, talk to us.
I'm Steve's daughter. I am an attorney who's helping with the contracts and things here at Division I, getting ready for the 2023 Texas Express.
Woohoo!
I'm also in charge of non-rail tours for 2023 Texas Express, and I think I joined in December, right, Dad? Is that what I joined? December.
And your layout consists of?
It's one Napa wine train boxcar on a piece of track.
So her layout is smaller than yours, okay? So
You have to start somewhere.
you got to start somewhere. Thank you. By the way, Christina is legal counsel for the convention. Steve Gratke, wave your hand, Steve. Steve is handling our website. Plug the website.
That was it, Mike.
You got to pay attention to what I'm saying here so you can get the flow of things, Miranda. All right. Website over here. This picture.
He's working on it.
There we go. There. Website. 2023texasexpress.com. Please go there. Spend time there. This man is spending his life there. Okay?
Not my fault.
I know. It's, yeah. Well, you were kind enough to accept the invitation whenever I put it out there. So.
Pressure was immense.
Hey, well, I know, yeah. So, by the way, Dwayne, you and Mr. Gradkey need to spend some time together.
Okay.
He sent me some photographs of his layout, and he's got biggest majority of electrical. He's got the biggest majority of civil also.
Okay.
All right. So we need to get that on there. Plus volunteer because of the convention stuff.
Yep.
Christina, you're working on the national committee, so that gives you volunteer points, which will start tying in everybody that's working on the convention gets volunteer points. John and Susan, that means you too, okay? Because y'all are NMRA members. They're actually from Division 3, but brought all their stuff over here because somehow somebody at National gave them my name, and so they're bringing all their stuff over here to Division 1 to sell it rather than at D3. So go figure. Chris Mahan, where are you? Okay. Anybody that wants to volunteer, please go see Mr. Mahan. He will have a sheet of paper with names on it so that he can write this down after I speak. There you go. Look, there it is. And he is taking the names of all the people that want to volunteer for the national convention. So we are rapidly stocking up with volunteers and worker bees. And we've got a whole bunch of people that are in the leadership team, but we need more worker bees. So please, if you don't mind, talk to Chris Mahan back there. Wave your hand one more time, Chris. That's him right there with the cap off.
If I might just say.
Yes, sir.
There are lots of different jobs. Whatever your interest is, I'm sure we have something that we'll need help with. As little as an hour or two during the convention would be a big help.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it, Chris. Which brings me to the next thing I want to talk about. All of the leadership team. Who's on the leadership team? Please raise your hand. Okay. If you're on the leadership team, please go and order this shirt like myself and David are wearing, okay? Because on the 29th, we're having a leadership team meeting and the shirt is free for you if you're on the leadership team. Go to Daylight Sales, call Daylight Sales at daylightsales.com and everything. Come on in. We got chairs over here if you want to come on up and sit down. I want to get everybody who's going to the meeting on the 29th as part of the leadership team. Please get your shirt, wear it. I want to show up in force with all of our shirts on. It's going to send a message, and that's the idea. Okay. Ask for Lewis. Okay. Oh, more chairs. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about that. Who have I forgotten? Yes, sir. I think so. Thanks, Keith. Who has not heard that before, right?
Mike Badger?
Never.
Back to you, Airbrush.
Nice. Okay, cool. How far along are you on your layout? I got you. Understand. Well, thanks for being here, Keith. Who else did I forget? I'm sorry, I got moved around. Okay, so the gentleman standing in the suspenders back here probably needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. This gentleman is the official photographer for the BNSF, the Union Pacific, the KCS, DART, TexRail, Fort Worth and Western. Yeah, you are. Ken Fitzgerald, everybody, please welcome Ken.
Mike told me it's gonna make me stand up anyway, so I thought that was a good time. I'm a railroad contract photographer. I'm the primary photographer for Trinity Metro, which is TexRail, the buses,
and 50% of Trinity Railway Express. And I do contract work for BNSF, UP, KCS, Fort Worth and Western when the phone rings. So I'm an HO scale modeler. I've got managed to get the 3rd garage stall walled off, so I've got a 13 by 9 room with the bench.
Cool. How far along are you going to be by the time the convention rolls around?
About where I am now, 0.
Well, nothing like realistic expectations, okay?
He's got a great track plan now.
Does he?
He's got a great track plan. Designed by Mr. Stecker.
Oh, really? Okay. Y'all two running buddies, Steckler?
Well, I don't think that in public, but.
Okay, all right. I don't blame you, Ken. Okay, I understand. We, as you guys who are new can tell, we have a good fellowship and a good camaraderie here, and we have a lot of fun. So we're glad you're here. Thanks, Ken. By the way, speaking of Ken and what are we doing over there?
Waiting on you because you're taking too long.
Sorry. Hey, go back to D3.
I can do that.
I know. Yeah. So
A lot shorter drive.
it is a lot shorter drive, yeah, but not nearly as much fun. So we have the good fortune of having a lot of clinicians in the area that are going to be working on the clinics for the 2023 convention. They're probably going to be doing dress rehearsals of the clinics for the 23 convention here at D1, which gives us the opportunity to kind of see them ahead of time. Thank you. There you go. Thank you. All right. So,
Brux's fault.
all right. And he's the audio guy.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry,
So, Ken is going to be doing a clinic for us a little bit later in the year on diesel train horns. Hopefully, we're probably not going to be blasting them inside the room, but we may do it outside so you can hear a little bit something different. I don't know what his plans are, but we've got all kinds of good clinics that you're going to start seeing between now and the time that the convention rolls around as dress rehearsals for the convention. So stay tuned for more. At this time, I'd like to introduce Joe Lysing. Joe is the convention coordinator for the LSR. Joe, would you like to step forward?
As he was saying, we have some fun here. All right, so good morning, everyone. Last month, sir?
That was better than crickets.
Oh, there you go. Last month, we talked a little bit about the upcoming LSR Regional Convention. Today, I would like to play a game called Convention Trivia. Yay! Really hard game to play. There have been newsletters sent out from Bob Thiel, the District 4 Convention chairman, with the help of Mr. Palmer back here. Their website has been up and running for quite some time. The information for this game is readily available, even as close as the flyers at the front door. If you didn't pick one up, please do. To play the game, simply raise your hand if you have the answer. We're going to ask you to give the answer and something about that answer. Okay? Mike, if you would help me select somebody to call upon once we ask the question.
Well, I'm ineligible then.
You're ineligible.
Dadgummit.
You know all the answers.
Oh, well, I don't know about
Okay,
that.
so really hard questions. If I asked you what the largest state in the LSR region was, the answer would be Texas. And then you tell me something about Texas. It's the greatest state in the nation. Okay, it's that hard. So, first question. When and where is the 2022 regional convention going to be? Anybody?
Mr. Mahan in the back.
Temple, Texas.
And when is that, sir?
No,
Well, it's within that time zone, so
Kind of,
that's a
yeah.
pretty close
Yeah.
answer. May 5 through 7.
5 through 7. Yep.
So-
So,
so-
you pretty
so-
close. Yeah.
So tell us something about either Temple, Texas, or May 5 through 7.
I'm gonna be there.
There you go.
That works. Okay, that is an answer. Yeah.
All right. Congratulations. And
Mr. Mahan, please come forward. You win a prize.
just like the inventory over here, we have out of stock, have no longer been produced for probably close to 20 years, different railroad cars. So, Mr. Mahan, for you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Now we've got your interest. He's taking home prizes. Okay. Yeah. All right.
All right. Hard questions. Next one. What is the deadline to register for early bird registration for the convention? Nope. Anybody? Come on. Are you
First.
April 1st? We have a winner.
David
All
Grind.
right. And tell us something about
April 1st?
About
My son's
the-
birthday.
That works.
Okay, that has something to do with that. All right.
Okay.
And for you, sir?
Oh, here it is.
It's not N scale, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's okay, but my friend can probably use that. Yes, sir.
You just gave away a great prize for the Christmas party.
There you go.
Yeah. See. All right.
Okay, so, and if you need to register for the convention, make hotel reservations, sign up for operating sessions, what website would you go to?
Who said that?
Google.
Yeah, somebody behind.
John Garfield said lsr.com.
That won't get you.
And John,
That won't get
what-
you to the
what-
LSR.
and John, what year is this convention taking place?
24.
So
22.
if you combine the two together and added the word org at the end of it, what would you have?
A boxcar kit, just get it.
That's it.
That's it. And he gets
All right.
that. All right.
And tell us something about the information you'll find at lsr2022.org. Sir?
Those are the whole schedule.
The whole schedule.
And nothing but the schedule.
Everything about the clinics, the rail fanning opportunities, the big comfortable lounge at the convention center where you can literally rail fan from inside the convention center. You can walk to operating sessions right at the convention center. Amazing information.
Be interested.
And step forward, you get a prize.
Oh, wow.
Can you see the excitement?
My friend will take that.
Thanks, John.
John's like, John's just gotta calm down.
I know. Yeah.
All right, so this is a little scary question based on the responses I'm getting, but there have been 4 newsletters sent out about the convention. Can somebody tell me something that's included in one of those newsletters that we haven't already discussed?
My email address.
Hey, I think it may have an answer there.
What you got, Ken?
The hotel.
The hotel. That's right. The hotels are there. There's information about the restaurants, all kinds of information. So in the tradition of sweet treats at Cowcatcher division meetings, Ken, we're going to make your dentist happy. Thank y'all. Get one of the flyers at the front door if you haven't gotten one already.
Thank you, Joe. Everybody give Joe a round of applause. He worked hard for that.
Everybody should have their own walk-up music.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even have walk-up music. I need to talk to my audio guy about getting walk-up music. Oh, man.
I got a special thing for you.
Yeah, that's it.
You have your own special thing.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly.
It is. He's already got one.
There you
It goes,
go.
wah, wah.
Okay, speaking of themes, who can tell me what our theme for this year is for the division? Yeah, show up, show out. Yeah, no, that's your theme.
Is there a prize?
Nothing will get done.
If you do nothing, expect nothing for a result. That's exactly right. So we want to make sure that we keep that in mind because That's what this whole thing is about, guys. If you don't show up, you're not going to get any results. So thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. The next thing I want to challenge everybody is next meeting. All right. Bring a friend. I don't care. Bring your daughter, bring your wife, bring a friend to the meeting. Yeah, I know. But what's your daughter or your wife? Oh, your friend. Okay. All right. And just bring someone with you. All right. Crumpton, what's our total so far? Trapper. How many? 46. Okay. Not counting what's online. How many we got online? 13.
Make that 59. 11. So,
Well, there was 13 at one time.
well, you and me.
Petrarca's driving in his golf cart. What the heck, Petrarca? That's dedication, people. He wants to be in he's in his golf cart in Arizona, and he's joining the Division I meeting. How good is that? Okay. That's dedication. Thanks, Bruce. We appreciate you being here.
He just wants to be able to blame you for his slice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Actually, he's on his way to a shredding event. The neighborhood real estate lady is having a document shredding event, and so he's
Okay, see, I'm a guitar player. Shredding to me
totally different. I get it. Yeah. So anyway, so we're right at 60 again, right? 60. 59?
Yep.
Yeah, right on the cusp. And when Mike Ross gets here, that's 60 again. So that's great. Dwayne, please talk to us about the AP program. Make any awards if you've got any.
We have nothing to add new this month. There are several folks in this room who just need to put some into paper. We're going to be doing some work with Mr. Crumpton later today.
No, it's
Next month. Okay, next month. John's going to have some stuff he's bringing next month that we'll do here. If you've got a model that you want to have evaluated, bring it up here if you want to. If you want to make an arrangement for us to come by and visit you on the way home, Jeff and I ride over together every month, so we're more than happy to get together and come over and take a peek.
Stephen, have you and Dwayne made arrangements yet?
No.
Okay.
But we need to.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, if you've got something at home that's at least 4x8 in HO, slightly smaller for those in the in-scale crowd, staring at your phone, not paying any attention, as usual. Hey, my great-grandfather was a preacher. He'd wait for somebody to start falling asleep, and then he'd call on them and ask a question. So I come from a long line of that. But at any rate, we can judge stuff up here, score your models and everything. It's an easy process. You can bring them up. We can take care of them. If it's something like scenery, obviously you're not schlepping your whole layout over here. So we can come by your house and do it. If you'd rather do it there and not have potentially a room full of people watching it being done, that's cool too. We can help you out however you need to. The convention we were just talking about, both of them, in fact, will have contest rooms. You can bring the stuff there and enter it. The contest and the achievement program are very loosely connected in that we use the same scoring systems. So the same point evaluations, you can use your points from a contest to be in the AP, and from a how do I build it, what do I build, they are exactly alike. However, sometimes the processes are a little different because they are not married at the hip, unfortunately. But I will tell you this, if you're going to enter a contest, you need to be thinking about it like it's a foreground model. It will need to have all the details on it you could possibly imagine, and then a few more. And that's where this next piece goes to. Bring your stuff up here for show and tell, even if it's not finished. Bring something you're in the middle of. Cody and Casey are great about doing that kind of stuff. They brought up some stuff last month. They showed me some of the stuff they just started doing some mill work on. Bring your stuff that's in progress, especially if you've got something where you're working on it and you're trying to figure out what's going to be the best way for me to make this do that. That kind of thing. Because I promise you, if there's 59 people sitting here in this room and you ask the question, there's a good chance there's probably going to be about 65 or 70 different thoughts on where to go next. So it's a good place to get your questions answered. It's good to come up and bring your in-project stuff and see where you are with it, get a few ideas, get a little bit of feedback, show off what you're doing. Somebody else may be doing something similar, may be stuck, and you've already done that part. You might be able to help them out too. So, but all that being said, if you've got something that's at least 4x8 in size, it's got scenery on it and it's running, you'd probably qualify for Golden Spike if nothing else, and you've probably got a further start down the achievement program than you know. So if you want to get better at this, you want to get better at your craft, come talk to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Which, the next thing I want to bring up is right over here to my left, your right, is a table full of stuff set up here that is extremely well priced. And it goes to, Mr. Francis is trying to find a good home. John, you want to say a couple of words about what you got over here?
Sure, thank you, Mike. I've been in the HOH world for about 60 years now. I started one now, as most people have. And when I became a teenager, I discovered cars and girls, and I kind of backed off the HOH world. But I've been able to acquire the things you see on the table here. I just have not had the time to build some of these kits, but I'm hoping they find a nice home, and glad you had the opportunity for my wife and I, Susan, to come here and share our wealth of HO gauge stuff, however extensive it is, and we'll be here as long as you want to.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Dwayne, you want to add something?
Yeah. For those of you who have never seen some of the older style kits, this is what model railroading looked like when I was a kid. It was Silver Streak and Ulrich kits. These are boxes of sticks. They've got the sides are already painted and printed on here. You kind of cut the stuff out, you put it together. I was greatly bored one day when I was about 7 years old, came in and asked my dad if we could make a run up to buy a new model airplane. He asked me if I had any allowance money to buy said airplane. I said, no. So he said, then we're not going. I told him it was raining outside and I couldn't go play ball, so I could stand there and annoy him while he was working on the railroad, or he could find something for me to do. So he gave me an old Silver Streak flat car kit, and I went and built it. Brought it back a couple of days later. He liked it so much he handed me a few more kits, and I've been building them ever since. And one of the things I wanted to bring up with this that dovetails back to the achievement program, this is what's inside that particular Campbell kit. It's all baggied, it's all lettered. So you work on it via sub-assemblies and then put all that together to come up with your kit. They go together really well. The instructions are really good. But here's the thing. It's a box of sticks. I mean, if you look at that right there, you can buy all of that at the hobby shop. You can buy the window castings at the hobby shop. You still got to cut out the wall. You still got to cut out the window openings. You got to cut out the door openings. And you got to put the whole thing together. You know what the difference is between building this kit and scratch building? Not a thing. The only difference is Leo did all this and put it in a box for you. That's it. It's the same steps. If you can build one of these, you can scratch build. And one of the nice things about these, most of the Campbell kits come with a set of elevation drawings. So here's what you can do. You can buy one of these kits, help John out, take the kit home, pull out these drawings right here, figure out how much material you need, go over to Discount or some of the local shops, order all the parts and pieces, scratch build it based off of this, put all this together, put it back in the box, and sell it off at the next division meeting. And you've now scratch built this particular structure, and it can count towards your achievement program structures. On structures and cars, half of the stuff you have to build has to be scratch built. You can scratch build all of it if you want to. In structures cases or cars, half of them have to merit, half of them have to be scratch built. Doesn't say that the ones you scratch build have to be the ones that merit. Any of them have to merit, just 6 of them. And out of all of those you have to build for structures, one of them needs to be a bridge of some sort. There was a bridge up here earlier. Actually, there's still one sitting right there. So this is an option for you guys if you're looking for buildings to scratch build towards the AP. And it's good to get your feet wet. I mean, this particular little kit right here makes up into 2 or 3 little buildings, and it's a nice little set of structures that fits anybody's layout. So again, just wanted to mention that while I was thinking about it, because most of the kits, not all of its kits, but most of them come with a set of elevation plans like that. And just keep that in mind.
I had the opportunity to speak to one of our members the other day, and I was trying to express to them that you may be further along. Take another couple of trips over there.
I'm getting myself in more trouble.
Take another couple of trips past the up and down here. You probably find 3 or 4 more you want, Dwayne.
The sad part is my Campbell collection looks a lot like that.
Yeah.
When he first brought it in.
Yeah. So in the conversation, I said, I think you're probably further in the AP program than you realize. And we started talking, and he goes, you know, Mike, he goes, for those of us who are relatively new, even though, let me rephrase that, inexperienced modelers. He goes, you guys that are MMRs have reached a pinnacle of something that we can only hope to attain.
Yeah.
And I said, that's really not accurate. And while you may think it's mystical and magical, it's really not so much. Because if you stop and think about the grading system for the achievement program, 125 points are the maximum score. And if you get 87.5 points, that's a merit score. 87.5 on a 125 point scale is a C score, C minus score, 70%. So if you, for those of us who have attained an MMR status, many times the inside joke is it only means that you're a mediocre model railroader. Certifiably average. Okay. So don't let the mystique with the initials behind your name of MMR keep you from going through the program and getting that certifiably average certificate on the wall.
In fact, I would say if you're new to the hobby or relatively new to the hobby and inexperienced, now's the perfect time for you to get involved with it, because you're going to learn the things the right way up front and not end up having 10, 15, 20 years worth of things
Mistakes.
you're having to undo.
Yeah.
And habits you're having to unlearn. It is a wonderful learning tool. There is nobody here. In fact, there's you see three Packer, Mr. Packer. I saw him.
He had to leave. He had,
did he?
yeah.
Okay. There's three of us in the room right now off the top of my head, and every one of us will tell you we are a much better modeler having gone through it than we were when we started.
And even Mr. Crumpton, who's not reached the status of an MMR yet, will tell you that same thing.
Yep. It is a constant learning experience, and it will have you working with things you never dreamed you'd build models out of.
Yeah, John.
Well, if Dwayne come over to my house and looked at my railroad, I had 4 certificates right away.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yes, sir.
The thing about getting involved in learning how to model and modeling better, the things that I've run into is I built some things 25, 30 years ago when I first got into the hobby and then took a hiatus. I come back and look at that old stuff and I go, wow, this is crappy stuff. I could do much better than that. I know better techniques. I know how things are supposed to work together. Even things that I built 3 years ago, I go back and look at it and go, I can do better than that. And it's just a matter of learning, getting tips from people, watching videos, talking to people, and learning through other people's mistakes too. So
very good.
It's a great learning opportunity.
Thanks, David.
Anything else?
So that leads us into the next thing of show and tell. Last month we had a clinic on mini prints, and Bernard Helen from Canada came in on Zoom and showed us some of the things that we had, and I brought up some of the 3D printed items that we had, and I want to show some of these now. I handed those off to Cole Rash, our program manager, who's also a taxidermist. And this picture right here, and excuse the temporary fascia I've got here, but we started working on this river scene right here. And what I want to do is, you can't see it from here, but the fine detail that's in here, if you look right here in that dead tree, there is a, I don't know, can you zoom in on that by chance? Yeah, keep going, zooming in. Keep going. Keep going. Now back over to the other side a little bit. No. Back to, there you go. Right there is a red-tailed hawk sitting in a dead tree. Okay? Can't hardly see it because it's so well camouflaged. All right, keep going. Well, you hadn't seen it yet. Okay? All right, now go to the other end, in the top tree in the top far end. Keep going. There you go. That's a peregrine falcon sitting up there in the top of that tree. Now, these 3D prints are painted exactly like the species. That's what happens when you get a taxidermist to handle the painting for you. And he's insane. I will tell you. Okay, next picture.
We let him out of the straitjacket just before the meeting started.
Yeah. All right, so this is a largemouth bass that's in the water in HO scale. It's got a white belly on it, and it's painted. It's even got the black stripe down the side of the largemouth bass. He glued a piece of fiber optic on the bottom of it, and we glued that into the bottom of the river so that whenever it was that we made the water cast, the epoxy water in there and poured it in, the fish is suspended in the river. Okay, next picture. This is a snapping turtle with his mouth open. Next picture. Another snapping turtle that's barely got his head out of the water. Next. An egret. Now, when Bernard, I was looking for egrets because we've got a lot of egrets down here, especially around rivers and swampy areas. He didn't have egrets in his inventory. So I told him, I said, Bernard, can you make some egrets? You've got herons, you've got flamingos, you've got all these other stuff. There's not that much difference between that and an egret. So he made egrets. Now, because he made them, I felt obligated to buy them, right? Because he made them for me. So here's an egret. Okay, next picture. These are two more bass in the water, right here and here. Okay, keep going. Next. There's a great blue heron that was painted, and he's barely standing in the edge of the water. Next. Two more egrets in the swamp. Next. Okay, I thought I'd sent you a picture of the oil drum. No? Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. So credit to Cole for doing all that fine work, but that's those are what the mini prints can turn out like if you start painting them and put them into detail. So oh, wait a minute. I sent you ducks too. I sent you another email that had ducks on it.
Yep, those were the 8 I got to, came up in my email.
There should have been 4 emails.
Okay, I only had 3 of them.
Because I wanted you to see the ducks too, guys. Okay. One of our members has a side business that does 3D printed models, and he goes to the train shows around here. Eric, you want to stand up and tell everybody about your good fortune and tell them where they can find their stuff?
Here at Smith, I have a side business of building model kits that are 3D printed buildings and buildings that are prototypical. They actually exist somewhere in the continental United States, and in field and HO scale. And I don't know, you may have seen me at several of the trade shows from Pinnacle, Bronzeville, Oklahoma City.
Plano,
Definitely Plano. The name of the company is Steel Railroad Model, and my goal is to have have one building from all 50 states. Right now, I have about 25 states covered. The buildings are kind of more of a main street, like I said, in HO. And this past month in the N-Scale Railroading magazine, a gentleman out of San Antonio had bought 3 of my large kits that he put together, and it's on the cover of that magazine. Look me up. It's www.scaleRRmodels.com.
perfect. Congratulations. That's a good thing. Glad you got the cover. That's neat. That's neat. Tips and tricks. Anybody got? Yes, sir. Show and tell. Perfect. Please come on up. Yeah. Cool. Russell, just set it right up here on the table. Is that okay?
Yeah.
It is getting a little warm in here.
We did heavy walking music.
Oh, no walk-up music.
Yeah, something Scottish would be good.
Dave, lower the thumbs. Maybe?
So Brett's Brewery, Campbell's Kit. I've added a deck to it and a bar inside. I can light it up. If you got
I don't have a power source.
I've got a power source, I can light it up. By the way, if y'all seen these power sources, you got them on Amazon for $19. I got one of my little layouts, got 60 LEDs I power off this one deal. And you can switch it from 3 volts to 12 volts. And it's got a pot on it to adjust the brightness.
Put resistors on?
Nope.
That does it?
Yeah, if you get 3 volts, just put on 3 volts. You know, if you get the 3 volt bulb, you have to worry about the resistors. If you don't, put on 12 with resistors, you're good either way.
Could you give the source on that to David, and he can put it in the chat on our video?
Yeah.
Where you found those on
Yeah,
Amazon?
on Amazon. Every one of these is what costs. I've loaded up every one of these on a Christmas layout. I've got 66 LED bulbs powering off this one. Yeah, you just get like a phone charger jack or an accessory jack plug into it right here. You can also daisy chain them together. They're really cool.
So what's the input voltage?
You can put 12 volts, 12 volts on the inside.
But then scale it down. You can pot it
the
down.
Switch right here will go.
I got the rest, I didn't know.
Yeah, from here to through there, it's got like.
Okay, well, work.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, they're inexpensive. Anyway, started this kit about 6-8 weeks ago. And like I said, it is a Campbell's kit. Well, if you look at the Campbell's kit, that's what you get, a box of sticks. It's because upstairs I got a full interior, I got paintings on the wall, I got a full bar in there, people sitting in the bar.
So does the roof come off?
No. This is one thing I was going to talk about Campbell kits. It's kind of cardboard piece they give you for the roof. And when you start putting the shingles on it, even when you put braces on it, it tends to warp and do all kinds of crazy stuff.
What my tips and tricks are going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to.
We've got it. Do we have an answer for you?
The next one's going to be a wood roof.
We can even make your cardboard work.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's braced on the inside and it still works. I ended up taking.
We've got a. Have I got an answer for you?
Good. I took some books and some weights and weighted on them and just let them.
Better than that.
It worked out okay. But,
Okay.
yeah, I'm always looking for something.
Jeez.
Like I said, I added the deck on it. It's the boiler room's actually got a.
Yeah, really.
Actually has a boiler on the inside of it. A lot of people, you see the boiler in there. The walls are all brick. The floors are all brick. So on the second floor, I've got tables and chairs and pictures on the wall. A full bar. I've got a bartender working. Down below, I've got beer crates and beer bottles. On the back side of it, loading dock side, you can see where I've got the beer tanks and all the bottles, cases of bottles.
Can you hold it up?
Hang on, I'm gonna.
Okay.
Well, I was.
So are you going to take that to Temple and enter it in the contest room as a offline, as an online structure? Yes. Yes.
Don't move.
The top, when you buy the kit, there's just really an open top. My wife was working with some copper sheets material, and I wanted to put a copper top on it. And this is actual real copper top, and I've got real copper for the flashings as well too. I kind of sort of try to petite them out.
So we need to talk to you about write-ups for the contest room.
Sure.
To describe all of these different things that you've done and how to do a good write-up for that.
Okay.
But can you leave that here so that people can come see it?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
The top, when I did the top, it was just a flat piece of copper. Then I kind of folded the edges and I cut a strip of copper, then I actually soldered that on the top to make a lid. And since there's a hole in the bottom of it, I just took a dowel and rounded it off and just started rubbing it on the inside and made the dome.
Cool.
Kind of made a dome top to it.
Those are scratch building points
Yeah.
for your kit.
Well, I wish you come our in-scale layout. I need you to come guys look at it.
Cool.
We're finished with that.
Where's your home?
Louisville.
Okay.
If you even look on here, it's got bottles on the table. The beer bottles, micro beer bottles, trash barrels full of beer bottles. Anyway, it's
Nice detail.
one of the few that we've got going on.
Said he did that in 6 weeks.
That was the
I just now remember what he looked like.
Oh, is that right?
Changed him over the last.
He's been, I mean, it's like every waking minute right there kind of thing. Yeah.
So anyway, we got our in-scale move finally into our bar room. So fix to start our HOA out. It's gonna be a 13 by 13. Yeah, I just work a lot. So what I've done, I've got probably about 10 structures that I've got built thus far. Because I wanted to do my some of my buildings built before I started my layout to help start laying out one.
Yep.
We'll be kind of doing a Black Hills type thing. But the Campbell's kits taught me a lot. One, just patience. And my number one best friend when I was doing this was a small diamond file. Putting things together and it just be a little bit off. And
Yep.
File a little bit, file a little bit, file. And then finally get it. The hardest part putting this whole kit together is getting the bottom and the top half put together where they all lined up. When you first put together, it racks, supposed to be twisted, does all kinds of weird stuff. So
Yeah.
I found getting corners glued and moving them around and filing a little bit, it worked out. But it's Victory Brewery. I don't know if y'all ever heard of Victory beer or not. I ride Victory motorcycles. That's why I always put the Victory stuff on it. But,
So one of the things that you're already touching on that you're going to learn in the achievement program is when you start building a model, good enough isn't. Good enough isn't. Okay. There's always an improvement. You can keep improving and getting those gaps. For instance, Mr. Grind
Yes.
sent me, he's not asleep, Dwayne. He just had his head down, but he's not asleep. David sent me a couple of years ago, he was going to enter a building into the contest room. He sent me photographs of it. The very first thing I did was take those photographs and blew them up like 1,000%. And I said, you got a gap here, there's a problem here, this, that, and the other. He goes, you're right, I can see that now.
the light leaks, this is a lot fully lit up on the inside. It's totally different lit up. It's really good when it's lit up. I've got some pictures that you can get. But light leaks, along your
Yep.
line. I've got a few tricks I've used for that in the past. Everything from just taking foam rubber, black foam rubber, and you can kind of tuck it up in there where you can't see it.
Yep.
Or just even using canopy glue sometimes to use a good filler to go in there.
One of the things I was going to finish that story with David about, he sent me the pictures and I blew them up and I told him this out. He goes, you do realize this is an N scale. And I said, no, I did not realize that. But he fixed those problems and he ended up winning what, David?
It was best structure.
Best structure in first place.
There's some of your
Yep.
pallets you gave me, by the way.
Oh, cool.
So, I was gonna
Cool.
put that grandfather clock in there, but it wouldn't.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
But
All right.
Also, too, if you look too, the air conditioning, I'm kind of a freak. I'm in the air conditioning business. I got line sets on it for the air conditioning unit and everything else. So, anyway.
Nice detail. Very good stuff. Thank you, Russell. Appreciate it. All right. Anybody else got anything for show and tell? Come. Let's talk, Mike.
After being made to build a scratch-built flat car and having to take some time off from scenery because I couldn't climb in the layout, I decided to do something at the bench. This is one of those box of sticks kits. It's from a company called Mullet River that's now defunct. But this is a model in progress, so you can see all the mistakes that hopefully will be hidden by paint one of these days. But the kit is laser cut. It's done very well. Some of the pieces I had to make because they didn't quite come out right. But everything fits nicely. It's a mixed media. It's got brass etchings, and the instructions were a little loose. He just said, "Okay, now it's time to put the brake detail on."
Well, there you go.
There you go. So anyway, this is the in the progress model that we wanted to see.
Perfect. Can you put it on the phone? On the phone. That way it won't roll off the table. Okay?
These are very good trucks.
Yeah, I can see that.
One of them got away from me and went 80 miles an hour down the lane.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Until it got to the bottom.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. All right. You can get your building out of the way.
Yeah.
Any other show and tell? Yes, sir.
A friend of mine had a surplus of AD boxes, springs, and planks that
I brought with me today. If you need any of that stuff, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Steele. Appreciate that. Anything else for show and tell? All right. Yes, sir.
Can I make a comment? People coming through here showing.
I have something.
Talking to youth, and they're not bringing their volume up for people in the back can hear.
Okay.
You need to remind them of that.
Okay.
Because they're not here to talk to you, they're here to talk to the audience.
Yes, sir. All right.
We got something on the.
You got something on the screen for show and tell?
Yep.
Who is yup?
Bruce.
Ah, Bruce. Okay.
I know you don't recognize me with this shirt on, but
Well, I don't have you on my screen here.
don't recognize the golf cart. Hang on. I'm home now. And
There
I
we
had,
are now.
Yeah,
Speaker.
I had something from the AP program and something from Hints and Tips. So
Okay. Go for it.
it's you realize, Mike, that in about 3 weeks, it'll be 6 years since we got our MMRs.
You're right.
Yeah, and that's how Mike and I met. By the way, just he sent me an email that said congratulations. I'm 574 and he's 573. So anyhow, and I disagree a little bit with what was said about the MMR getting your MMR making you a better modeler, because I'm a heck of a lot better modeler now than I was 6 years ago. So, you know, it started the process, but it didn't.
Yeah.
Very much so. But you were a better modeler 6 years ago than you were 6 years prior to that.
Yeah, but that ain't saying much.
So it did make you a better modeler, and now you're even better.
That's the point.
But yeah, and Bruce brings up a good point, because it is a learning curve that you find you don't want to get off of. It's a journey that once you get there doesn't mean you hit the end of the line. You can continue to learn, continue to pick up new processes, work with new materials. I mean, just in the last 10, 20 years, we've had wonderful technology leaps in our hobby. I mean, lasers, 3D printing alone have revolutionized what we can do on a railroad.
What you got, Bruce?
Oh, you were also talking about light leaks and stuff in structures. I wanted to show you guys this this pan. It's a magnetic pan where you use magnet into it, and the corners are nice and square. It has a lip, so you can use the magnets to set up hold the structure in here while it gets glued or whatever. It comes in this kind of color. I think I got it from Micromark.
Yep.
And they're pricey, but worth it. But that's Micromark, isn't it?
Yeah.
But they come in this, and you get a lot of good light on it so that you can really see what's going on, and the reflection off this drives you nuts. So a little gray metal primer fixed that problem, and it works out. And then one other thing I learned from Fran and Miles Hale, if you're working with like DPM wall sections and stuff like that, one of the problems is getting them nice and square and clean. This is a tool made out of 1/4-inch plywood and a couple of strips, one on each side. And this is a sheet of 100 grit sandpaper glued to a piece of plywood. And you build the wall sections up and you put them in here. And then you put this on here and you sand them off and get them nice and even and straight. So that's it.
Cool. Good. I've got tips and tricks to follow along with that. Let's start with the most recent one. One of the reasons why you have so much trouble getting a DPM kit to go together is they actually cast the walls with just a little bit of an angle so they can get them out of the molds easier. The problem is when you go to put your walls together, now your walls are doing this and not doing this. So yeah, you need something like in woodworking we call it a shooting board, where you'll lay the board on there and you'll turn a plane on its side and you'll run it down through there to even up the edge of a board. Basically, that's what he's doing with the sandpaper right there. You talking about your roofs on your Campbell kit? Your tip for cardboard roofs?
Go ahead.
No, you first.
You can take a light coating of epoxy and coat that cardboard with a light coating of epoxy, clear epoxy, that sets up in 10 minutes. And that cardboard becomes absolutely rigid.
5-minute epoxy?
Yep, 5-minute epoxy. Just paint it on there.
Put it on there with a
Very, very thin.
try it
Or
on with like a popsicle stick.
or you can actually take a latex glove and pour it on there and just spread it around with your latex glove.
Have to be smooth.
You want it to be smooth because you're going to put shingles over the top of it.
Guys, one of the things you do with boats, and you're fixing fiberglass boats, is you use MEK to thin the epoxy.
Oh, really?
Yes, it will thin the epoxy, and you can turn epoxy into paint. And it's something that we've been doing for a very, very long time, and anybody who's lived around any marina has been doing for decades.
All right, would that work? You know, the microengineering bridge decks, okay? Gluing them on styrene is like.
Guys,
Yeah, you can probably do something
Could
like
you
that.
use that in the epoxy?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. The problem keeping when you turn paint into something, it will run.
Yeah.
So you want to control the thinness.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because you want to put a bead
Yeah.
down into it, but you don't want it running down.
Yeah, but the problem with epoxy is kind of like sometimes too thick, and excuse me, in normal scale, it will tend to
Bubble up, yeah.
show on the edges and stuff. It's hard.
Yeah,
to
you get a lot of
but
squeeze out.
if you
Yep.
Thin it. I always wondered if you could thin something like that.
yeah,
MEK.
MEK. MEK.
And in fact, that might be the one where you go over to Home Depot and buy MEK in the paint department. Now, I will tell you all this. Do not, underline not, use the MEK at Home Depot for your plastic modeling. It is full strength. It is a carcinogen. So, I love our hobby, but it ain't worth dying over.
Oh, that's what I buy.
So, yeah, go start buying some of the stuff from the hobby shop, would you?
Okay.
You're a pain,
Yeah.
but we love you. So we'd like to keep you around for a while.
Even if you
I have
don't
to have
know,
somebody to pick on.
even if you don't know what scale you should model it. So
Okay. No, I know. I
Yeah.
model in normal scale. I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, you can use it. I just would not recommend it. I really
For
would.
what?
For working on modeling, but for what we're talking about here, for thinning,
Yeah.
I would
If you
go
don't
that
need very
route.
much, I probably buy the little one.
David,
Be careful.
Bye.
I was gonna say, instead of using cardboard, I have had opportunities to use either an 030 or an 060 styrene and cut it the shape of the cardboard, and that stuff is like, it don't work.
yeah,
If you
okay,
look at transfer tape, Scotch makes a thing called transfer tape. I've used it for years on cardboard. It does not work for cardboard. It doesn't do anything to it, but it'll turn the entire surface of the cardboard into, it's like double-sided tape,
Yeah.
except it's glue.
Yeah.
It's like a double-sided tape, and it comes in a roll, and it'll have paper on one side of it, all in a nice neat roll. And Scotch makes it, or three on Scotch, whichever. Because they're the same company.
Yeah.
And you just lay it down solid across the thing, and then you put your shingles on it.
And that'll help stiffen them up.
Eric.
Yeah, the 10X7R that's no longer made, that's an MEK-based plastic welder, but you can get it from Micromark, and they call it the same stuff because they took the 10X7R formula and they made that into the same stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You can buy a pint, you can buy a quart of the MEK at Home Depot for the same price you'll buy the 4-ounce bottle.
Yeah. It's just the
But
difference
it's
is
full strength.
it's full tilt. Yeah.
Okay.
The 10X, if you can get it, or if this stuff actually works the same way, it's my preferred MEK for doing styrene work, especially for repairs, because it doesn't care if it's a painted surface or not. It'll seep right through that paint and bond that surface together, where some of the MEKs won't.
The same
The
stuff.
10X or the same stuff that
It's
Micromark's
from
doing.
Micromark. It's their brand. The name of it is the same stuff.
Okay, so we've talked cardboard, we've talked styrene. If if like a lot of folks, your railroad is out in a unclimate controlled garage, I'm here to tell you that you're going to have problems with either of those solutions. The thinning down the epoxy takes a while. It is a learned skill. If you do not get it perfectly flat, your roof's going to have bumps and waves in it. Styrene, especially in an uncontrolled environment, will tend to sag in any unsupported areas. It'll start to droop. Cardboard will eventually start to curl up at the edges, and all your buildings look like pagodas. Do yourself a favor, and when you open up the Campbell kit and they've got the cardboard roof in it, use that as a template. Go down to your local hobby shop and buy you a sheet of 12 by 24. It comes in as a sheet size of 1/32 aircraft plywood, and make your roof out of that.
Yep.
It will never warp. It's easy to cut, or relatively easy to cut, especially if you've got a hobby table saw, or in my case, I throw it on a laser. That's what I put in all my kits. It is easy to work with, and it is dead straight, dead flat, and will stay that way. And you don't have to sit there and spend time thinning glue and smelling vapors and walking around for a few hours afterwards, you know.
But the other part's fun.
It can be, but it's a nightmare. Light bleed, he's talking about that earlier. I love the tip with the rubber stuff around it. That's a great one. Paint the insides of the walls when you're doing wooden structures and you're going to light them. The materials, especially in these old kits, it's a lot of it's old sugar pine and stuff like that. It's very, very thin. Wood is very, very porous, and your walls will glow if your lights are up very bright, and that's a problem. So you want to paint the wall, even if you're not going to do an interior, paint the walls on the inside and the outside. And truthfully, anything that you're doing with a wooden model, if you're going to put anything wet on one side, put it on all the sides. And I don't mean just the big side here and the big side here. There's two sides here and there's two sides here too. Put it all the way around, and that way it's getting wet evenly and it can dry flat. Okay. This is something that I've been doing in modeling for years, and it's something that I even applied in my own wood shop when I resaw a board in half to do a book match. A lot of times, if that board has not been sitting in my shop for a long time and is really, really dry, I'll open that thing up and it'll still be a little bit damp in the middle, just because the wood's not completely dried out. And eventually, as that thinner board now starts to dry, it'll want to cut. So the first thing I did, the first time I cut one open and saw it was a little wet, I went, huh. So I took a rag and wet it down all the way around and set it down, put some weights on it, and it dried dead flat. And I went, modeling for the A. But light bleed is always a problem on the insides. I like the fact that this little circuit board here, and I'm gonna have to look into getting a few of these, has the pots in it where you can tune it. One of the things that is, having your buildings lit is one thing, and it does set your layout now to that next level, okay? The problem is we tend to look on Amazon or we go to the hobby shop and we buy 75 or 100 of the exact same light bulb. And we put them all on the layout and we light the buildings up and everybody goes, wow, that's really cool. And then somebody like me walks along and goes, did you all get together and buy all your light bulbs together at Home Depot or something? Bought them in a big batch? Because every light bulb is the same color and it's the same brightness level. Real world doesn't look like that. Walk outside tonight when you get home and it gets dark, cruise outside and take a look up and down the street and count how many different colors of light you see in everybody's houses. And then how many different brightness levels you see. And you'll probably lose count. There'll be that many. Using something like this where you can plug in this bulb, that bulb, and one over here to this one, and this bulb, that bulb, and that one over there to another one, and then set the brightness levels a little different. Buy different colors of bulbs, buy different colors of LEDs. Paint the bulb, paint the LED with different translucent paints. Tamiya makes yellows, oranges, and reds in translucent paint for doing turn signals and brake lights on car models. Paint your bulbs with those and let that show through, and it'll actually color the lights a little bit. I know a guy that's got a color combination that I do not know the recipe off the top of my head, but he can paint a regular blue-white LED and turn it into a warm yellow glow, and it really comes out looking nice. I can't remember again what the formula is, but it's, you know, one of these and two of those and sacrifice a chicken on the third Tuesday of the week kind of things, but it works. At any rate, one of the things that keep in mind when you're varying your lights around, companies do tend to buy their bulbs in bulk. So on a business, it's not unusual for all the light bulbs inside a building to be the same color and the same brightness level.
In a factory.
In a factory, something like this. All the internal lights in that one are probably going to be the same bulbs. What you can do, however, is the external lights are likely different from the internal lights. And that's a way you can vary it right there in just the one structure and give yourself some variations. So it's stunning when you see that done. We had a guy over in Dallas named Phil Roach did a clinic for us one time back when Dad and I were just getting Division III started again years and years ago. And he brought in this little module and he set it down and he kicked the lights on. And I'm like, oh, that is just too cool. And he goes, that stinks. He flipped another switch and turned on the secondary set of lights, and all of them were varied around. And I was slack-jawed. I was stunned at the difference in it. I mean, the first one I thought looked cool. The next one looked real, and it was very different. The only other thing I would give you as a tip on this one, and this is a common mistake that a lot of modelers make, it's weathered from the bottom of the wall all the way up underneath the eave. And you guys have heard me preach this one before. Anything where that's got an overhang like that, that top foot to 18 inches, depending on how much overhang it has, all the paint will be will still be there. It's protected. It's out from underneath the water and the rain and the snow.
It'll be clean.
And more than likely, unless it's on the rail side, it'll be clean. If it's on the rail side, especially in steam, you might get a little bit of soot buildup in there and things like that. But it is something that you can walk out to, and you can go to anybody's railroad. You can go look at your own, and you'll look up underneath the buildings. Now that I've told you that, you'll be going, Dwayne's right, shoot. But where you really will see this, as you're driving down the road, and especially if you're out in the country a little bit, and you start seeing barns, pay attention to the paint job on the barns. Because if it's a really old barn, it may not have an ounce of paint left on it until you get right up underneath the eave, and then that paint looks like they painted it last Tuesday. It's stunning, the difference of it.
What I do when I do stuff, I still got no weather. What I do is pastel, I'll do the same thing along that.
Yep.
The backside of that, I think I kind of did already. I just take it, I drag it down.
Yes.
And then I take the color of soil, whatever it may be, and up with that.
Yep.
And then
Rain splash.
Yeah.
Rain splash.
And then once I get it on there, then I take that GoPro.
You bet.
Briefly talk about light on the side.
Yeah, that's where it's heading next. One of the things he mentioned there is dirt. I know a lot of guys will use their weathering powders to simulate that dirt splash, and every building's got it if it's sitting on the ground and not, sitting way up on concrete and got parking lots around it and all that kind of stuff. Go look at the side of your house. Chances are, if you've got a neighbor really close and not a lot of grass in your side yard, you'll probably see it on the side of your house as well. And it's just the rain hitting the ground and splashing dirt up on the side of the house. This is one of the reasons why using real dirt on your railroad can be a benefit. It is going to be darker than it looks outdoors because we're never going to get the lumen value in our train rooms that the sun gives us outside. So you're gonna have to compensate for that a little bit, but there are some advantages to using real dirt, and that's one of them. Real dirt is a weathering powder. I've got a set of geology sieves that I measure mine down in. I put a shovel full at the top of it. They stack up. They've got different levels of screens on it. I put the lid on it. I shake it a couple of times. The stuff in the bottom is dust. I mean, one good sneeze and you'll empty the whole thing dust. And that's a great weathering material. And I put that in a box and I keep that for my weathering. It makes your buildings and your railroad freight cars and freight equipment, it makes it look like it's running through the land that your railroad is set in. And it ties everything together. And it goes on just like a pastel. You'll brush it on and then come back in and dull coat it back down to seal it. The other thing that you can do on this is if you have directional lighting in your train room, canned lights are fine and to some degree, but track lights where you can really get in and aim your lights. Make sure you don't have lights doing this. The sun coming from one direction. So when you get shadows doing this, the back of your brain starts itching and starts, what's wrong with this? And you may not be able to pick it out at first, but the back of your brain's looking at it the whole time and it's going to nag you the whole time you're looking at it. Get all of your lights, figure out where you want the sun to be, and then point all your lights in the same direction. Then you can come in with some lighter colors that are very similar to what you've used on your trim and on your siding. And on that side where it's facing it, you can come back in and just put some highlights. Like this has got clapboard on it. You can come in and just do the edges of the clapboards. I find the colored pencils work really well for this, and it represents that sunshine glinting off the edge of things. And it's not something you have to do a lot of. It's something that you don't do very drastically. It's a very subtle thing. And you don't have to do the whole side. Maybe just the highlights of that very corner that's painting the sun, pointing at it, and it'll make a big difference. The other thing I would suggest too when you're weathering this one is some of this coppery green color. streak that down, that wooden tank a little bit, because that, yeah, it'll make a really nice deal. But that's a nice looking model, man. I mean, not having spun it around and looked at it real close, you probably got a meriting model there easily.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it when you get it finished. So.
All right. Thanks, Dwayne.
You bet.
Okay, guys, it's 11:10. All right. Let's take a short 10-minute break, come back at 11:20. Wait. Oh, yeah. There's refreshments in the back. Please feed the kitty if you would. We want to make sure that we collect enough money to pay for our refreshments today. So please help for that if you don't mind. We're going to come back at 11:20. Restrooms around the corner here. But 11:20, we'll resume and we'll pick up with our clinic with Dave Ackermann. Okay? Thank you. All right. All right. Guys, without further ado, I want to resume our meeting. I want to introduce a gentleman from St. Louis who's joining us today via Zoom, and he's going to talk to us about dispelling the angst and anxiety that some people may have when it comes to CAD drawing. When you start talking about the technology that's available in our hobby today, one of the natural things is 3D printing to look at. And I understand that some of you may go, well, we had 3D printing last month and we're talking about 3D printing this month. And I know you work for a company that sells 3D printers, but that's not really why I'm up here pitching this. It's really has a lot to do with where our hobby is going and the technology is available for you to use. Now, one of the things that you can do with what you're about to learn is if you know somebody that's got a 3D printer, or if you have a small 3D printer and you're not using it, this is going to take away your learning curve on how you use CAD drawings. Because I'm going to now introduce from St. Louis, Dave Ackermann and his clinic, 2.5D drawing. Dave, take it away.
Well, thank you very much. Mike, I am not hearing you through my headphones anymore, but I'm hearing you through the phone. So could you give me a thumbs up if you are hearing me? Hey, all right. So we're going to keep doing that this way now. I'd like to, before we get into this, I'd like to take a survey of the room. And Mike, I'm going to let you capture the survey for me. How many of you guys and gals there have done some 3D printing? Show of hands, please.
We got about five or six.
Okay, about maybe 20% of the folks in the room. So to bring everybody up to a common level first, those of you who have done the 3D printing, you can take a break for a little bit because I'm going to do about an 8-minute pre-clinic to just get everybody up to speed a little bit. So I'm going to share my screen. Mike, could you let me share the screen? It's disabled for me right now.
David?
Let's try that again. Nope, not quite yet.
Down at the bottom, the green button.
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yeah, we're getting there, Dave. Hang on just a minute.
Down at the very bottom. One more over.
I still can't share the screen.
No, the other way. Hit the arrow up. Advanced. Right there. Now all participants.
There we go.
All right, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, folks, if you've never done 3D printing before, here's how I got into it. I bought a Creality Ender 3 Pro for $200 from Micro Center. The thing's probably about, 2.5 feet tall, maybe 15 inches across, but the dimension that's really important to everybody is the size of this bed, this print bed. It's about 200 millimeters by 200 millimeters, and in the Z direction, it can go up about 250 millimeters. Now I model an HO, and this was a pretty good size for me. I got it for $200 about 21 months ago from Micro Center. If you'd buy something today, or back when I modified this slide deck, back in December, you would get a V2 version 2 of this thing, and you'd spend about $260 for it. So you can get into 3D printing at the low end, the Harbor Freight type of end, for under $300. I teach another clinic about introduction to 3D printing, and you guys had one of those last month, but I characterize 3D as like falling in love. It's going to be complex, expensive, frustrating, and my wife and I will have 50 years in October. It can be highly rewarding. It's kind of like getting into digital command control, DCC. It's not for sissies, but it can be a lot of fun. When I got this model, there was some assembly required, but it took about an hour. Think IKEA. The way these things work, there are 4 stepper motors that control the movement of stuff. This is a stepper motor right here, and it drives this belt, and this carriage goes back and forth to move this extruder, this heated nozzle, in the X direction. There's another stepper motor back here, and it controls this belt, and the platen, the plate, goes back and forth in the Y direction. There's a motor right here that's on a screw, and it moves this structure here up the screw in the Z direction. And there's a motor back here which takes the filament through this blue tube into the heater here, the extruder, and it spits the filament onto the platen. That's how this type of thing works. There are resin printers which are more expensive, but I was just getting into it. So that's basically how a 3D printer works. You can put different color filaments up here and print in multiple colors. I tend to print in white and gray because this stuff paints pretty well as well. But if you want other colors, you can do it. Okay, yeah, heated comes from the top, goes through the tube, goes into the extruder, and that Z-axis starts going up and up as it prints the whole thing. So that's how these things work. 3D printers print models. Now, you can go out to thingiverse.com, and there are all these models there. These are in HO. This one of a little house, a street building, a collection of stuff. Housing here. I designed a hot tub. I never had a hot tub in real life. This was walls and floors for a building. You'll see more of that in a little bit. There are models there out there that you can download, mostly in HO. But if you want something of your own design, you've got to learn CAD software. You probably heard of Tinkercad, SketchUp, Fusion 360, that type of thing. So that's there, but it's like this. You work in a plane, and you can rotate the plane around. You can design things. It ain't easy. So if you want, but if you want something like this log cabin that I wanted to do here, you got to design things yourself. But learning CAD is really difficult. I've got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and a master's in computer science. CAD is not easy. People don't think in 3 dimensions, I'm finding. So, that's hard. But there is another way. And that's what I call 2.5D CAD using PowerPoint. So if you're interested in designing your own models, this is something that you might find useful. Okay, I'm going to shut down this little part right now. And I'm now finding out why I couldn't hear you. I've got a headset that's got a pot on it to control the volume, and I think I pressed the mute button on it, so it's a lot better now. Hey, I don't have a degree in audio. All right. What we're going to see here in the next about 45 minutes is a presentation that I've recorded. And I like to teach these to divisions around North America, and sometimes my voice is good, sometimes it's not. So I record this stuff. So I'm going to start this video running, and from time to time, I'll just stop for questions, or I'll make some comments on my own, that type of thing. And at the end, we'll have time for Q&A. And at the very end, I've got a little sweetener, Mike, that you don't even know about. Yeah, this is going to be fun. So we're going to take 45 minutes now and let this puppy roll. So here we go. Creating 3D objects for model railroading is a lot of fun. Learning how to create them with 3D computer-aided design software is not. The software is complex, and learning how to think and design in 3 dimensions is not a skill most people have. But this clinic will give you the simple tools needed to be productive designing model railroad objects using skills you may already have using Microsoft's PowerPoint. Is the audio coming through okay, Mike?
Yeah, it is. Can you take it to full screen?
Boom. There we go. That's quite a claim. So how is this going to work? You probably already know that PowerPoint is Microsoft's computer program to create presentations. It's been around since 1987. You may already know how to use PowerPoint's technique to insert a shape into a slide. You can combine several shapes into something recognizable and useful in model railroading. What you may not know is that you can save PowerPoint's shapes into a portable document format, or PDF. You probably do not know that you can convert a PDF into a 3D model and print it on a 3D printer. That's how a 2D drawing can be converted into a 3-dimensional object, hence the title of this clinic. 2 plus 3 is 5, and divided by 2, we get 2.5D. The details are the subject of this clinic. The key concept here is extrusion, and here is the first extruder I ever used, a cookie press. With a twist of a knob, it extruded cookie dough through a die and deposited it on a cookie sheet. Another example would be a piping bag that a baker uses to deposit cake icing into roses. A 3D printer isn't much different. Mine heats a filament, extrudes it through a circular nozzle, and like the piping bag, moves the nozzle around in the X, Y, and Z directions to build up a 3D image. If we could create a die like used in the cookie press, we could instruct our 3D printer to extrude filament in the 2-dimensional shape of the die, and then specify the desired height of the extrusion. That is exactly what we will do by creating 2D shapes in PowerPoint and printing them in 3D. Let's check out a few samples of what I have created with this technique. Here is the city limit sign. The decal is one I made in my decaling clinic, but the sign and post are 2 rectangles drawn in PowerPoint, extruded to 2 millimeters, and printed. Here is a drawing of board and batten siding as seen from the top, and the wall that results when the outline is extruded 35 millimeters in the Z direction. What I want you to learn here is to think in 2D. Think of things as seen on the edge, and then see how you can create something like this out of a drawing like this. You're just looking at it here from the edge, and I extruded it up on the 3D printer. We can use the same technique and create corrugated roofing for a shed. A picket fence is certainly within reach, as is a gate that you might find blocking a road. Even something as complex as a trestle bent is simple to draw in PowerPoint. Simple applications like these can add value to your model railroad. Imagine what you might be able to do if you glued a few of these pieces together. And if you are willing to learn just a very few techniques using a free, simple package like Tinkercad, you will be astonished at what you can accomplish. So how is this going to work? Let's start by designing something simple, the city limit sign. If I look at it straight on, I see that it is just two rectangles, one for the sign and one for the post. I model in HO, and from my work in creating custom decals, I know that the sign will look good if I make it 1/4 inch tall, which in HO translates to 21.7 real inches. So I use PowerPoint's Insert Shape function and insert a rectangle. I'm sure you probably can draw a rectangle that is exactly 1/4 inch high, but I cannot. So I right-click on the rectangle and click on Size and Position. I alter the height to 0.25 inches and alter the width to some value that I think will be a bit wider than the name I wish to place on the decal for the sign. Similarly, I draw a slender rectangle for the pole. Something 0.05 inches would represent a 4x4 in HO, and we can make it as tall as we like. I place the pole roughly where I want it, select both objects, and use the Align function to align their centers. With all the shapes selected, I again right-click, select Format Shape, Line Color, and then No Line. My technique works well with solidly filled shapes, but lines are problematic. Finally, I click on Size and Position and either remember or write down the width of the object. I want to save the design, so I click on the File tab and give it a name of City Limits. My version of PowerPoint, version 2010, saves the file in a .pptx extent. But did you know that if you click on File, then Save As, you can save the file in many additional formats, including a PDF file? So I select the PDF file type and save the image as a PDF as well. Perhaps there is a CAD package somewhere that can work with the PDF, but if there is one, I am not aware of it. What I am aware of is a website, anyconv.com, which can convert a PDF into a stereolithography file, a .stl file, which can be imported directly into the Cura slicer, from which we will then be able to print our objects. We just open the website, select our PDF, tell the website to convert it into an STL file, and then click on the Convert button. When the conversion is complete, we click on the Download button, and the new STL file appears in our Download folder. Let's get ready to print it. Many of you know that slicing is the process wherein the STL model file is converted into instructions to drive your specific model of 3D printer. For the rest of you, I use free software called Cura to slice my model files. To open our STL model file,
Dave, can you pause
I
for a
click on the
second?
File command. Then I certainly can. Do we have some questions?
I wanted to bring out that Cura Slicer is free, but there are also other slicers that are available, and any slicer can use any STL file. So it's not just Cura that's available. If you've got another slicer that you're using, feel free to use that to slice your STL file.
Absolutely. Cura is free. It came with my printer as well. It's kind of funny. When I bought the printer, the Cura Slicer version was like 1.3, and what was available for free on the web was like 4.7. So when you buy something, even when it's right off the shelf, the software is probably going to be obsolete. I have some folks tell me that they like some pay software, and you can do that. And it's like buying your tools initially at Harbor Freight for a table saw or a bandsaw, but you may want to end up going to Woodcraft or Rockler and get a Rikon, and you're gonna as your skills improve, so will your tools. But even the basic tools will get you going. And I wanted to get a solution for $300, so that's where I went.
Dave, I was going to tell you that if you want to, for future clinics, you want to write this down, you can go to polyprinter.com, which is our company's website, and under the downloads, you can look at the polyprinter software, and when you download that package, there's two different things there. One is KISS Slicer.
I've heard of that.
It's a pretty robust, free software that we provide to everybody. And then the software that drives the printer is Polypronter software. And so both of them are free from our website. If you want to use those slicers or the printer driver, feel free to do that. We don't charge anything for that.
Good deal. All right, we're getting ready now to open this city limit sign, which we sliced. And on Open File, and select the STL file that AnyConv has created for me. Note that the dimensions are not as I created them in PowerPoint, because inherently, STL files never contain the measuring units used to create them. I believe that AnyConv and PowerPoint both use inches, but that Cura assumes millimeters. Thus, if you go directly from AnyConv to Cura, the ratio of the X and Y dimensions are correct, but the absolute sizes are not. It would be nice if there was an import option in Cura to allow us to specify the import units we desire, but such is not the case. No matter. After importing, I just click on the imported object, and then on the left edge, I click on the icon that looks like a black hourglass in front of a larger white hourglass. This icon then lets us alter the size of our object. Just enter the desired width of the object, which we wrote down earlier, or which you promised you would remember without writing it down. In millimeters, 25.4 millimeters per inch, and the proper size is restored. Now, one thing I want to tell y'all, this is version 4.7 of Cura, and the current version of this slicer is 4.13. The appearance of these icons has changed a little bit. They modernized them a little bit, like we needed a change, but they're going to look a little bit different. You won't see these icons to alter the sizes unless you actually click on this object.
Dave, I was also going to add, if you don't mind, KISS Slicer does allow you to change your measuring from millimeters to inches and inches to millimeters as a measuring tool. So
that's a good thing to have. Now, I'm guessing you probably want to alter the height of the Z-axis while preserving the dimensions of the X and Y axes. With the sizing icon still selected on the left edge of the window, I click on the Uniform Scaling checkbox to deselect it. You can now specify the amount of extrusion height you want, and for the city limit sign and many walls, 2 millimeters is a pretty good choice. It helps me to remember a few ratios. In HO, 10 real feet scales down to 1.38 inches. And 1.38 inches converts to 35 millimeters. So 2 millimeters is a bit under 6 inches. You can try to scale it down further if you think your 3D printer can render that successfully. Now I click on the Slice button, and then on the Save button to save the G-code to my SD card, which I then transfer to my 3D printer for rendering. Your printer may operate similar to mine or may not, and I'll leave the actual printing methodology up to you and your user's manual. Let's take a look at a few more samples. This is a gate which is very similar to the city limit sign. It is just a collection of 5 thin rectangles. I made mine 0.08 inches wide. 2 of them are neither horizontal nor vertical, but rotating an object in PowerPoint is simple. Just right-click on the object to select it, and then select the Format Shape command. Click on Size and Position. Specify a new rotation angle and close the menu. Your object will be rotated as you specified. Or click on the small green circle just outside the shape and drag it to rotate the object. Where objects intersect, I always place the complete end of one object over the object with which it intersects. That way, I always get a good connection between objects with no gaps. To my HOI, the gate looks good extruded to 2 or 3 millimeters. You can use the same technique to create non-rectangular supports for signs. I used a swag shape to create a sign for a rummage sale. From the same shape, I made a much larger sign for an entry gate to a county fair, adding some scallops to the bottom. I also made decals using PowerPoint, and the technique is covered in a separate clinic available at my website, http://dackm.github.io. I'm going to take another digression right here, and let's see if I can pull that up here, get the right one.
That Holiday Inn sign looks cool.
I was just thinking that same thing.
Well, let's just talk about that real quick. I went out and on the web and I searched for Holiday Inn signs and found one and took it into Photoshop. I got rid of the background color on the thing. There was some background here, and printed it out as a decal. And then I used it as a mask and printed out using my 3D printer. And it worked. I had to make a copy of the decal, flip it so that I would have something for the other side. And that meant I had to flip the text here a little bit too, but it worked. I don't have any place for it on my layout, but it does work.
I see a future project in mind.
Mention my website. If you write nothing else down from this entire clinic, write this: dackm.github.io. This is my website, and everything that you're going to see here today for this clinic and for all my other clinics is on this website. So if we scroll down, you can see here's 2.5D CAD using PowerPoint, a little bit about the clinic. If you wanted to watch the whole thing over again, you can click here and you can do that. The handouts here. And here are links to download objects that you're going to be seeing as we go along. My other clinics are here as well. And toward the end, I've got some ideas here for additional clinics that I may or may not develop sometime. But you're going to be seeing something very brand new that isn't even on my website yet at the end of the show. But here, it's a place to go for resources about this clinic and all the others. All right, let's continue on. You are really limited only by your imagination. Well, one other thing. I liked this one. A highway banner for roadsides, and I did decals for Route 66 and all of that. So yeah, you can design all sorts of shapes in PowerPoint, and then you can print them out in a 3D printer after you run them through any conv to convert them from PDFs into STL files. So you could build a lot of different stuff that's flat and just extrude it using this technique. Similarly, we have the trestle bent. The individual pieces are all 12 by 12s, which in HO make them 0.14 inches square. I made 3 of them for the top, middle, and bottom, and spaced them about 12 feet apart vertically, or 1.57 inches in HO scale. I made some more 12 by 12s, rotated them vertically, and spaced them about 0.34 inches apart, left edge to left edge. I added more supports, rotated 6 and 12 degrees, and copied them to the opposite side. I stretched the pillars appropriately and the horizontal timbers as well, and I had an object I could extrude to 3.5 millimeters and print. In my clinic on building billboards, I created legs, face frames, and a boardwalk out of pieces of styrene, but the 2.5D CAD technique makes this much easier. I make billboards in 5 sizes, scale to 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16 feet high in HO, and they are available via the links on my website, http://daakm.github.io. Each set contains 4 legs, a boardwalk which you can cut to size, and pieces to frame the artwork you can create yourself or download from the internet. To fit properly, make sure your artwork matches the scale sizes described earlier, typically 1.10 inches, 1.38, 1.65, 1.93, and 2.20 inches respectively. To match the heights of the support structures described earlier, we are constraining the height of the billboard artwork, but the width of the artwork is free to be any size you desire. This means that you will need to resize the horizontal frame pieces to be about 0.2 of an inch wider than your artwork to allow for the width of the frame. The vertical frame boards are already sized to match artwork that matches the proper HO scale. I made 2 variations of board and batten siding, one with an interior board and an exterior batten, and another with an interior batten and an exterior board. Here I drew a rectangle 8 inches in width and 0.06 inches tall, and positioned it in the upper left corner of the page at 0, 0. I then created a small square. Using format shape, I sized it to 0.06 inches and positioned it 0 inches from the left edge of the page and an inch below the top of the page. I made 11 copies of the small square. I took one of the small squares, and again using format shape, I placed it 7.31 inches from the left edge of the page. I then selected all of the small squares, but not the long rectangle. I clicked on Arrange, Align, Distribute horizontally, and then on Arrange, Align, Top. Next, I clicked on Arrange Group. Now, using the format shape, size, and position, I positioned these 12 small squares at 0.00 inches from the left edge and 0.04 inches from the top, giving them a 0.02 inches overlap of the long rectangle. Finally, using Control-A from the keyboard, I selected all of the objects. I used Format Shape, Line Color, to turn off the borderline around all the objects and saved the file. Voila! Board and batten siding. When printing, I will resize the X dimension of the object to 42 millimeters to translate this 8-inch object into 12 scale feet in HO. Set the Y dimension to 2 millimeters because I like all my walls to be 2 millimeters thick, and I will set the Z axis to whatever height I want for the siding. In HO, 8-foot-high siding translates into 28 millimeters. To make it look like the battens are behind the boards, I selected all of the small squares and increased their horizontal size from 0.06 inches to 0.55 inches. You can choose a different width than 0.55, but that size looked good to me. Similar to board and battens is this corrugated roofing. It's just a matter of alternating hollow circles. Here is a sample of clapboard siding. I started with the thick board and batten siding from the previous sample and moved the small blocks down so that they were no longer overlapping the larger rectangle, but still touching it. I also increased their width so that each touched its neighbor. Using the Edit Points function, I then deleted the lower right point from each of the small rectangles. Doing this for all of the smaller rectangles resulted in some nice clapboard siding. I tend to think of siding being in 12-inch segments, so by having 12 triangles in our drawing, we are limiting ourselves to 12 feet in height. But remember, we can duplicate our siding piece, abut the second to the first, and group the two before creating the PDF. We will set the exact dimensions in the slicer, or we will see in a bit. We can combine walls with windows and doors for a creative effect. I've made some walls, so now I am going to make some windows. I start by drawing a rectangle for the window frame. Arbitrarily, I'm going to make it 1 inch wide and 1.5 inches tall. I'll rescale it to final dimensions when I slice it. I'm going to have 4 cutouts for window panes, and these are going to be a 1/2 inch tall and 0.33 inches wide. These dimensions are arbitrary, so change them if you like. For better visibility, I am going to color the pane yellow. I duplicated the pane and moved it over a bit from the first pane, aligned their tops, and grouped them. I duplicated the pane group, dropped the second pair down under their siblings, and center aligned all 4. I grouped all 4 panes. I then moved all 4 panes over the frame and center and middle aligned the panes over the frame. Finally, I ungrouped the panes into 2 pairs and then ungrouped the pairs into individual panes. I now have 5 individual objects nicely aligned into a window. Now for something you may not know about PowerPoint. Do you see on my window in the upper right is a group named Shape Tools? You probably do not have this group, as by default it is not visible in PowerPoint 2010, but you can turn it on. How? Click on the File tab, then on Options and Customize ribbon. In the lower right of the window, click on the New Group button and rename it something like Shape Tools. In the upper left of the window, there is a drop-down box labeled Choose Commands From. So pull down the menu and click on Commands Not in the ribbon. The commands right below the drop-down box will change. Select Combine Shapes from the list, then on Add to add it to the Shape Tools group, then on the OK button. Now that we have customized the ribbon, select all of the shapes. The Combine Shapes group will become active and options will appear. Click on Shape Subtract, and since the 4 panes are in front of the frame, all of them will be subtracted from the frame, creating holes. You have just created a window. As before, We will use anyconv.com to convert the Windows PDF to an STL file and alter the final size in the slicer to 10 by 15 millimeters. One of the things I want to be doing in the next couple months is make a whole library of different windows using Tishy and Grantline as my starting point. So I'll have my own windows that I'll have forever. 2 millimeters tall. Later in this clinic, we will show how we use Tinkercad to combine shapes, and we will add this window to a wall. A simple door is not much different than our window. Unfortunately, we can't uncombine our object. We could decide to start from the beginning and draw a larger frame, but fortunately for us, we can use PowerPoint's undo function to go back a step. A standard exterior door is 80 by 36 inches, so I'll set the height to 2.2 inches to maintain the proper aspect ratio and recombine the window panes, and we have a door. And speaking of doors, let's create one that is a bit more sophisticated. I want something rustic, so I am going to start with the STL file of the thick board and batten object we created earlier. Because I want fewer than 12 boards for my door, I'm going to make a copy of the page, select the object, ungroup it, eliminate 6 of the panels, and change the width of the backer board to 3.88 inches. I save the page as a PDF. When saving the door, I need to use the Options button to save only the current slide to the PDF file. You may wonder why I don't use the Selection option in the Save File panel. Well, it's not a highlighted option in PowerPoint 2010, so I can't select it. I have to separate my objects into discrete pages. Now I am going to add another page to this PowerPoint and draw 3 rectangles in the shape of a Z and save it as another PDF. As before, I use anyconv.com to convert the door and the Z file to a stereolithography format. Why are we going through all of this for the door? Well, remember, this is a tool that works in 2D. So for the basic door, the 6 panels, that's one thing. But if I want to have the Z up on top of it, that's another thing. So I've got to do something special to get these 2D objects into what will eventually be a 3-dimensional door. In the slicer, we import the door's STL file the 6 panel doors by themselves, and then click on the door to allow us to change how it prints. So far, when using Cura, we have printed our object standing on edge, but we are not required to do so. On the left side is a slicer tool, the 3rd one down, which allows us to rotate our design in the X, Y, or Z direction. So I click on the tool. 3 circles appear to allow us to rotate the door in each plane. I click on the bottom part of the red circle and using the mouse wheel, drag it upward, noting the change in the rotation angle as I do so. When it gets to 90 degrees, I let go of the mouse and the door flops down flat to the build plate. Several strokes of the red circle may be needed to get the door perfectly flat. Next, I want to change the size of the door, and another slicer tool allows me to do so. I click on the tool that looks like 2 hourglasses and a box opens where I can alter the dimensions. Since I want to alter the dimensions disproportionately, I make sure the uniform scaling box is unchecked. A standard exterior door is 80 inches tall and 36 inches wide. So for HO scaling, I set the X dimension to 10.5 millimeters, the Y dimension to 23 millimeters, and the Z dimension to 1.5 millimeters. Now I slice the door, save the G-code to a file, and print it. Have you ever noticed that the Cura slicer, by default, always centers our projects on its table? We are about to use that knowledge to overlay the Z on top of the board and batten we just printed. After printing the board and batten, but without removing the door from the build plate, start a new project in Cura and import the Z. No need to flop this one over, as it is already parallel to the build plate. Size it to the same X dimension, 10.5 millimeters. Reduce the Y to about 18 millimeters, but set the Z dimension to 0.5 millimeters. It is not obvious, but the Cura slicer by default always drops any object it prints to its build plate. But I want the Z to rise above the build plate so it can be superimposed to the door. To make this happen, what you're going to learn right now with this stuff changing the parameters is how to print something on a 3D printer that only prints one color, how to print it in two. So it's all about layering. This is a graduate course here in 3D printing. So if you don't get it, it's okay. But if you want to know how to do layering in multiple colors on a printer that only prints one, this is what you're going to learn. I click on Cura's Preferences tab, then on Configure Cura. A Preferences window opens and I click on Printers and then on Machine Settings. A box labeled Start G-Code appears in the lower left. I want to add an additional line at the top and the bottom of this code, so I click inside the box, use the arrow keys to move to the upper left if necessary, and enter M206, a space, Z-0.00, and the return key. I then use the keyboard's arrow keys to move to the bottom right of this box, where I enter a return key to begin a new line. I enter M206, a space, Z-1.48. I then position my mouse following the last line in the end G-code box, hit the Enter key, and enter M206, a space, Z-0.00, and close the window. The changes will be saved automatically. M206 is a special G-code command which, in our case, adds a displacement of 1.48 millimeters to all subsequent Z-axis parameters, thus raising the Z above the door. Now when I slice and print the Z, it will float above the door and adhere to it. Pretty cool. Why did I choose the number 1.48? I chose 1.48 millimeters as the Z-axis displacement because I want the Z to be ever so slightly attached to the door. And since the door is 1.5 millimeters thick, this displacement of 0.02 millimeters will do the trick without destroying the door. After printing the Z, go back to the Preferences, drill down to the Start G-code settings, and place a semicolon in front of the M206 Z-1.48 line, which changes the line into a comment, thus deactivating it. Otherwise, all your subsequent prints will be elevated from the build plate and turn into spaghetti monsters. It's also a good idea to turn off your printer and back on after printing any elevated object. At any later time you again wish to superimpose one object on another, all you need to do is remove the semicolon and alter the displacement as desired. Want a picket fence? I decided to create mine out of 1x4-inch boards with a 2-inch gap between boards, and it should be 8 feet long and 42 inches tall. I drew a rectangle 0.33 inches wide and 1.75 inches tall and positioned it at the upper left corner of the page. I copied this rectangle 15 times. I took one of the rectangles and repositioned it 7.5 inches from the left edge. Again, using the trick we learned with the board and batten siding, I selected all of the rectangles, distributed them horizontally, and aligned their tops. I grouped them all. The fence posts need some stringers to hold them together, so I drew another rectangle 0.33 inches tall and 8 inches long and placed it near the top of the posts. I copied this stringer and placed it near the bottom of the posts. You may want to add a third stringer in the middle. If you want a bit more visual interest, you can always dog-ear the first post before duplicating the other 15. Draw the first post a bit shorter and add a triangle or trapezoid on top. Then group the two shapes before duplicating. I want to create room pods to allow a structure to have individually illuminated rooms. When I first designed a building interior to have individually illuminated rooms, I did so entirely in Tinkercad. Subsequently, I designed the interior of this building using the 2.5D technique, and it was a lot easier. Just measure the inside of the building and design your walls and floors accordingly. 2mm walls and floors work well. I glued a piece of sheet styrene to the back of the pod to create the back wall. I used 5-volt LEDs to illuminate the rooms and made them light at random using an Arduino and a random illumination program or sketch, which is available on my website under the Amazing Arduino Animations heading. Dwayne, you're right on this. This model I got from Thingiverse, and the walls were really thin, and I did not paint them prior to this illumination trick. So in the future, I would definitely either paint them or work with thicker walls or work with LEDs that weren't quite so bright. In this case, these were 5-volt LEDs that I'm driving here, and a resistor would have been a nice thing, or there are other ways to dim these suckers down. But yeah, I wish I'd reshoot this slide, but I haven't yet. Remember when we printed the door and overlaid the Z on top of the board in batten? We are going to repeat that trick and create a billboard with slats and in 2 colors. This PowerPoint file has 3 pages. The first has some slats and the letters of our radio station. The second has just the slats, and the third has just the letters. Why did I design it this way? I wanted to make sure that the letters were sized appropriately before moving the 2 objects into separate pages for printing to their respective PDF files. Size and position, I should have said position as well. Notice how these letters line up on the slats. If I wasn't quite as careful, they would not have lined up. Note that the height of the type and the height of the slats are identical. This is important because it allows the type to bond well to the slats. By the way, you can choose any PowerPoint typeface you desire. The technique works as well with type as it does with shapes. I extruded the slats to 2mm. Once we have created the PDFs and converted them to STL files, print the slats in an appropriate background color. I chose black. After printing the slats, change the filament color for the lettering to something that will contrast with the slats. I chose white. Like we did when we printed the Z for the door, change your slicer preferences to prevent dropping objects to the build plate. And finally, raise the letters 1.98mm. The letters will print on top of the slats and bond the 2 parts together in 2 colors. Neat! On the door, The door itself was 1.5, so I took 0.02 off of that to get for a 1.48 offset. For this sign, the slats are 2 millimeters thick. So I again subtracted 0.02 and got 1.98. The thing is, depending on how thick your underlayer is, alternate the second part. So it's 0.02 millimeters from the original height. And that gives you a good bonding without destroying the sign. Just remember to reset the preferences back to automatically dropping objects to the build plate. Not only can you create objects for your railroad, you can also create tools. Here I created some wedges and angles I find useful. You can also create gauge blocks to help you duplicate dimensions for traditional styrene or wood construction, eliminating the need to measure for cuts you may want to duplicate at a later date. Not much more difficult than a simple window is a stained glass window for a church. I started by searching the internet for stained glass windows church images. When I found one I liked, I right-clicked on it and saved it to a file. I imported the stained glass image into PowerPoint and sized it to my liking. Now I want to make a frame for it. I added a rectangle to my page, and using Format Shape, I set the fill property to No Fill. I positioned and sized the rectangle such that it surrounded the image of the glass. Did you know you can get greater precision when moving or sizing a PowerPoint object if you simultaneously hold down the Alt key while moving your mouse? I right-clicked on the rectangle and selected the Edit Points option. I moved the mouse over the top line segment until it was both over the top of the window and the upper rectangle line. It changed from 4 arrows to 4 straight lines, and I right-clicked on the location. A menu appeared, and I clicked on Add Point to add a new control point to the rectangle. Similarly, I added points to the 2 vertical lines, just where the window transitions from straight lines to a curve. Finally, I deleted the upper left and upper right points. Now I went back and clicked on the point at the top, and 2 small white boxes appeared. These control the slope of the line at this point. I clicked on the one on the left and moved it leftward and downward, so the line began to follow the left edge of the dome. I did the same thing to the point at the top of the left edge and refined the locations until the former rectangle matched the shape of the image. I did the same thing to the right side. I now have a shape that matches the outline of the window. I made a copy of the page and deleted the image. I made a copy of the outline, enlarged it a bit, and aligned it with the smaller version. With both pieces selected, I formatted the shapes, removing their lines and replacing their fills with a solid color. I combined and subtracted the shapes, and now I have a frame for the window. I made an accompanying stained glass decal for the glazing, applied it to clear styrene, glued the window to the frame, and my object was ready to be applied to a church wall. We have learned how to make signs, walls, windows, and doors with PowerPoint. But to put a window or door into a wall, we can benefit by learning just a small amount about a simple CAD package. I use Tinkercad, a web-based application you could use for free at http://www.tinkercad.com. If you have never used a CAD package, investing 6 minutes now will open your mind to what can be accomplished with the primitives we created in PowerPoint. Once in Tinkercad, we click on the Create New Design button. Now, let's import the clapboard siding wall that we created earlier. We click on the Import button and navigate to the STL file we produced in anyconv.com. Leave the default set at millimeters, but change the scale factor from 100 to 25,400 and begin the import. Tinkercad gives our design funky names, and I like to rename them something more appropriate. So I highlight Tinkercad's default name and enter something like garage wall. Now for some basic navigation. You can rotate the entire work plane by holding down both the control key and the right mouse button, then moving the mouse. You can pan around the entire work plane by holding the shift key and the right mouse button, then moving the mouse. You can zoom in and out by using the mouse wheel. If you want to get back to one of the basic views, just move the mouse to the square in the upper left and click on one of the words in the cube, or a triangle just outside the cube. We can alter the dimensions of our imported object. You may remember when we printed an STL file in the Cura Slicer, we had to alter the extrusion height to our desired value by clicking on the object and entering the height we wanted. In Tinkercad, to make it taller, we just click on the object and then on the small white box at the center top. Yes, we can drag the box up and down to alter its height, but I prefer digital accuracy, so I click on the box with the numbers and enter my desired height in millimeters. 35 millimeters. I want to rotate the wall so that it is lying on its back. I use the Control right-click navigation method to rotate the work plane so that I can see a portion of the side of the wall. You don't have to be perfectly accurate here, just so you can see a decent chunk of the side. Now, when you click on the wall, in addition to the small white boxes, you also see some arcs. Yes, we could click on the arc icon and move the mouse to rotate the object, but I like to click on the arc and then on the digital entry box and enter -90 to rotate the wall to its back. The wall now looks like it is levitating, and it actually is above the work plane. To drop it back down, we just make sure we have the wall selected and then hit the D key on the keyboard. Now for the fun. Click on the navigation cube in the upper left and then move it around so you are looking at the face of the wall. Since we rotated the wall, its front face is in the top view. Let's orient the wall so that its bottom is aligned with the bottom of the work plane. With the siding selected, click on the arc at the left and enter 90 to rotate the siding. Now to size it, click on the black square on the left edge, then on the dimension, and change it to 75 millimeters. Similarly, click on the black square on the bottom edge and change it to 45 millimeters, and the square in the middle to 2 millimeters. Now, click on the gray and white cube under Basic Shapes at the right of the window and drag it on top of the wall. We are going to create a hole for a window. The hole is 20 millimeters tall, so reduce its height to 2 millimeters. Also, adjust the X dimension to 10 millimeters and the Y dimension to 15 millimeters to match the size of the 4-pane window we created earlier. Hold the Shift key down and select the wall as well. Click on the group icon at the top. You have now punched a hole in the wall for a window. You can take the window we printed earlier and snap it into the hole. If it doesn't snap in perfectly, you may need to use a file to do some final fitting, but there is another way. Make a duplicate of the previous wall and ungroup the wall and the hole. Import the 4-pane window and place it below and to one side of the hole. Set the height of the window to 2.25 millimeters and align it with the hole such that the window moves but not the hole. Group the wall and the hole, and then group the wall-hole combination with the window. Now when you slice and print this project, the wall and the window will print as a single object. Using this technique, you can add as many windows and doors to a wall as you like. When you are done, you can decide if you prefer inserting a window into the wall by pressing it in with your fingers and gluing, or printing the wall and windows together at the same time. I tend to like the second method, but the first method does give you the option to print the windows in a different color than the walls, or paint them before inserting them. Here we have placed it all together. In Tinkercad, I started with the siding we designed in PowerPoint and added holes in the walls for windows and doors. I made the holes just a bit wider and taller than the windows, 0.6 millimeters, to avoid having to file the windows down to size. Your 3D printer may have tighter or looser tolerances than mine, so you probably will have to experiment to get the sizing to suit your needs. I changed to a green filament and printed the corrugated roof from PowerPoint, a center support beam, top vent, and moldings to cover the wall joints. After assembling, I had a shed for my tractor. Well, we may be out of time on 2.5D CAD using PowerPoint, but we are never out of ideas. Culverts, bridges, loads, and much more are all within our grasp, even if one has never before used a CAD package. Remember, it's not the tools that make someone a craftsman, but how creatively one uses the tools one has. Thanks for participating. Okay,
All
there we
right.
go.
All right, who's got questions? Anybody have questions for Dave? Dave, I'm telling you, you did a great job. There's no questions at all right now.
Well, we all know that means one of two things. Maybe everybody got everything, or everybody is totally bamboozled here. So there we go.
I don't think either one is absolutely correct, but if they go to your website, they can always circle back and watch and learn more, right?
Right. And let me show you something here, if you can pick this up here. This is a cabin that I just started making here using this technique. The walls are just a bunch of circles, one on top of the other. And I took them into Tinkercad and masked off the peak there. And I've got walls, and the you probably can't see it from this view, but the logs intersect just like they would on a real log cabin, and I didn't have to do any work because it just all came out automatically when I did not make the walls quite join, but overlap them just a little bit, and the walls, the ends of the logs stuck out that way.
All right, and Dave, could you repeat that that website one more time?
DAA, like David Allen Ackermann, DAACKM .github, GITHUB.io.
Perfect. It's in the chat. If anybody wants to see it, we've got it in there. And so you can just copy that website down and go back and you can see this clinic. But if I understand it correctly, all the things that you've designed are available for download off of that website as well. Is that correct, Dave?
I don't know that all of them are there, but many of them are.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. If you're going to the St. Louis convention, Dave's going to be doing another clinic there. And we're also talking to him right now about coming and doing a clinic for us in the 23 convention as well. Dave, thank you. I'm sorry.
I promised one thing that I'd like to share with you all as well as a sweetener. So I'm going to take just a couple of seconds here again, if I can. And I'm going to show you something here. I decided that if I can come up with one way of doing CAD, like I've just shown you, I wonder if there are other ways, other things that I could do other than using, Fusion or SketchUp or even Tinkercad to generate objects which I call step and repeat, like like shingles, shake shingles. Shake shingles right now, all I can do is get a piece of paper and print it, and I don't like that. There's no dimensionality to it, no depth. So I said, let there be a program, and notice that this program is 3 days old.
Yeah.
Let there be a program where I decide I want to make a roof, and I want it to be 100 millimeters wide, and I want 8 rows of shake shingles. Now it's going to be a roof, and they have to have some sort of a substrate. So let's have a substrate that's 0.6 of a millimeter, and let the distance between each row of shingles be 5 millimeters. How far are they going to be between the shingles? Well, 0.2 millimeters. I want the shakes to be between 2 and 3.5 millimeters wide. I want them to be between 6.25 and 6.9 long. I want the thickness in the Z direction to be the same. So the minimum and the maximum are going to be 0.2 millimeters. And the pitch is going to be 0.7 millimeters. So let's generate shingles. Well, it's going to save the shingles in a format that's used by OpenSCAD. OpenSCAD is a CAD package where you really don't need a mouse to draw things, but you describe their dimensions in a text file. So I'm going to save that file. It already exists. I want to replace it. Okay. If I want to open this file, it looks kind of like this. If it's got 2 slashes in it, it's a comment. Well, I'm setting my origin here. I'm setting a rotation. I'm giving the dimensions of a cube and doing that over and over again for each individual shingle.
And the computer generated that automatically.
It generated that, and it now looks like this. It's still loading.
Interesting.
So what other things could we do like this?
Hold on a second. I got a couple of questions about the shingles.
Yeah.
So this is in a STL file right now, correct?
Correct.
What other file formats could you export to using that program you just showed?
Well, OpenSCAD would allow several different formats. I think an OBJ. I don't know a more extensive answer for you, but I do know that once I'm in STL format, I can probably go back to any conv.com, any file converter, and convert it into other file formats. So I think there are probably solutions for it.
Okay, because I just, if somebody had a laser and wanted to cut that generated shake right there out on a laser, they might could do it that way as well.
They could do it, or you could go back to the SCAD format that I showed you that is, text. You could take the substrate out. Let's look at it from an angle here a little bit. There you can see the shingles are on a 7-degree angle from the substrate. Well, you could just not print the substrate. You could print just one row, and you could make your own shingles. You'd probably change the angle to 0, so it'd be easier to print. But yeah, you could print your own shingles, and you could put them on one by one. But I didn't want to do that.
Sure, understood.
So that's where this came from. And if I can do shingles, I can probably write something that would do a brick wall. And if I again want to do step and repeats, well, that's a fire escape for the outside of a building. So I'm beginning to ponder what other types of programs could there be that would do this type of thing for a 3D printer and just make it so much easier? So
Good.
that's the sweetener here of where I'm starting to go, and I'll take this and talk about it in St. Louis, I'm sure, but it may be another clinic, for NMRAX down the road. But that's just starting to think in different ways of creating CAD.
Well, that's one of the things that I try to tell everybody is if you ever go ahead and take the plunge and go into 3D printing, it changes the entire focus of how you think about modeling from that point forward, because it opens up so many other opportunities and so many other avenues for you to modify your buildings, modify details that go on your buildings or on your layout. They're all at your fingertips, and the limitations of the 3D printer are only limited by your imagination. I mean, I hope you would agree with that, Dave.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a tech weenie, and I was an early adopter into 3D. But if you stay in this thing another 5 years, you're going to have a 3D printer. And techniques like you've seen today will make it a little bit easier. Will they replace things like Fusion and SketchUp? No, you're not going to design the Taj Mahal with this PowerPoint technique. But other things are going to start to evolve, like the shingle program and so on, where it's going to make a lot of these things easier. There was a chat question about are the shingles available in Tinkercad? No, the shingles right now, the thing's only 3 days old, but I hope to put the shingle generating program onto my website, so folks who are interested could download it and generate their own shingles. And I'm still learning some more about what I want in this. I'm thinking now, well, wouldn't it be nice if I could color the shingles randomly and allow them to be printed for paper for people who don't have a 3D printer? And then you don't have to buy them from Bar Mills. Bar Mills makes great stuff, but I wanted it my way.
Right.
So it's not there yet on it'll never be in Tinkercad, but the shingle generating program with an explanation will be on my website, and look it up again in a month and see if there's something on there, or stay in touch. You can go to my website and there's a link there to email, so you can email me and I'll respond. I'm the AP chair for Gateway Division, so I loved the discussions that went on before the clinic, and I'd like to watch some more of your stuff, and hopefully you'll be interested in watching some more of mine.
Well, thanks, Dave, and just for you as well as everybody else, all of our division meetings are on our YouTube channel, which you can access by going to cowcatcherdivision.org and see all of our previous meetings and our other clinics. Dave, I've given your contact information to Wayne Richardson, and he's the regional AP chair for the Lone Star region. And so I'm sure the two of you will be able to connect a little bit later and talk about some AP stuff if you'd like.
I'd love it, and I'm a newbie as the AP chair. I've got my author certificate. I've got my electrical engineering in National now, where Frank Koch is looking at it. And one thing I do ask of you all, I am working on my volunteer clinic, my volunteer certificate, and I need 60 points. If you will send me an email validating that this event did take place, it's 0.51. I'm getting really.
I'm sure our regional AP guy can send you that email, and it'll be received by Frank with no problem.
Yeah, I'll make that happen.
Terrific. Thank you all for your time, and I appreciate it.
Folks, I want to drive home one final point before we dismiss. If you don't have a 3D printer, I bet that before your children's age is over with, every household will have its own 3D printer. I truly predict that. I can remember, and most of us in this room can remember, when not every house had a microwave oven. Now you wouldn't believe to have a kitchen that didn't have a microwave in it, correct? Let me give you an example. First off, the space station, the International Space Station, has a 3D printer on it. What makes more sense? You break a mission critical part, and when you do, you call NASA and say, send me another one on the next supply ship that comes up 9 months from now. Or send me the file and I can print it overnight and we're back in business tomorrow. You see the benefit there, right? And printers can print in filament of any filament type. Now, the examples that we were just looking at there with Dave, those were probably just regular ABS or PLA type filament, which is just a plastic type filament. However, with printers, you can buy filament that is glass infused, which makes it fiberglass, wood infused, which makes it a wood-based filament that you can extrude the filament, and then the printer, the filament is wood, looks like wood, and it acts like wood. You can stain it, you can sand it, you can scorch it, you can paint it, anything. Or even more, carbon fiber infused filament. So you can print something that does not have a stress point of normal plastic. It's carbon fiber. And as another example, everybody knows Jay Leno from the Tonight Show, right? And everybody knows he's a car head, a gearhead, right? And he's got these old cars that you can't get parts for anymore. He has the parts printed in 3D for his cars. And you can put these parts on an engine block, because if you stop and think about it, what's an overheat temperature for your engine block? 260 degrees, 280 degrees, something like that. So if your car is going to get hotter than 280 degrees, it's going to shut down, right? Well, that's in Fahrenheit, 280 degrees Fahrenheit. The extruder, when it extrudes this filament out, is coming out at 265 degrees centigrade, or almost 3 times boiling. So a part that you extrude out of a 3D printer can go on an engine block and it will not melt, because it is beyond the melting point of your engine block. So you could take a 3D part and actually use it on your car. Another final example. You've got a thingamajig at your house that breaks its what's-it. You call the thingamajig company and you say, I need a what's-it. They say, do you have a 3D printer? Yes, I do. Give me your credit card. They give them their credit card. They send you a file already programmed for you that will allow you to print 3 what's-its. You've got instantaneous delivery. You print off 3 of whatever you need rather than just 1. They don't have warehousing, manufacturing, shipping, or waiting on UPS. The customer has got instantaneous delivery, and everybody walks away happy. And it costs either less or the same, but you get 3 times as many as 1. Okay? So you can see where this is probably going, folks. And I would urge you to be an adopter and think about this, because once you get it, it will change the way you think about things. I was a customer of the 3D printing company before I went to work for them. But as an example, I went and I was reorganizing my garage and I put up a pegboard. So I went to Lowe's or Home Depot and I got my pegboard. But when you get a pegboard, what else do you get to go with it? The pegs and the hooks and stuff. On the way home, I'm driving home, I was like, ugh, I wonder if there's anything on the internet that I can download that's 3D printable that works with my pegboard. 3 gigabytes worth of files later, I have now got things that I never even conceived of printing that work on my pegboard. Battery dispensers, baskets, all kinds of whatchamagallets that will now work on my pegboard that I can print on my 3D printer. It changes your entire concept. Dave, would you agree with that?
I would. Let me give you one more build of what you can make with 3D printers. Friends. I've got
Friends,
a friend.
yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got like owning a pickup truck. You know, I've got a friend who rehabs pachinko machines. He buys them for $25 from somebody, and then they have broken parts. So he designs them in CAD, in Tinkercad, sends them to me. I print him for him, and he's got his part for his pachinko machine. So you know,
and Dave,
20
you have not idea how many friends I've got now because I've got a 3D printer and they want things printed. So I agree with you.
There you
Friends
go.
come out of the woodwork if you've got a 3D printer. I was fortunate enough the other day, Trapper here at the club, he said, I'm looking for dwarf signals for the train club.
Yep.
And so I said, how many do you need? He goes, 30 or 40. And now the club has 65 signals that are dwarf signals that they're going to be able to put LEDs in, and everybody walks away happy. So
Yeah,
my small contribution.
I will never buy a DPM or Woodland Scenic structure kit again because there are so many of them out there on Thingiverse. And if I screw up a wall, I'll just print another one.
Print another one. That's it. All right. Any other questions for Dave before he goes away? Thanks again, Dave. We sure appreciate you. Guys, thanks for Mike. What was our head count today? 62. We beat last month by 1. All right. What are we going to do next month? Bring a friend. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Buy the rest of the stuff from Mr. Francis. All right. Thanks, guys.